Bob writes about it. Jim talks about it. But Chuck did something about it.
Foreman on a big hole across the 10.
He's something else.
He's out in touchdown land.
He's something else, baby.
Now, here's longtime columnist Bob Sansevere, Fox 9's Jim Rich, and the great number 44,
Double 4.
Chuck Foreman.
Welcome to the JimBob Sports Jamboree with Vikings legend Chuck Foreman and the superstar Mike Morris. This program brought to you by the Window Store, Inc. Tyler Gantz and the boys can take care of all your windows. It's freezing in your house. Put new windows in. Just do it. They've got ways to make it not painful financially for you. They got ways to smooth it into your budget. So give those guys a call. Go to their website. You can find it just on that internet thing. So here we are, Super Bowl week. Chuck, you are the only one in this room that has been there. You were the last one representing the Minnesota Vikings. Mr. Morris tried valiantly.
Did everything I could.
Everything you could. You guys gave everything you could.
Yeah.
And we were discussing earlier before you got here about what it takes to get there.
One thing about being coached by Bud Grant. Now, I don't know how I guess I know how he does it, how he did it. But in order to get to this particular place during the course of the season and at the end of the season, everybody's going to have to buy into everything that you do. And that means if you get in there or play during the entire game, when you get into that game and you're only going to be in there for like one play, they call you to go in there, then you got to play the best you can play in that one particular play. Everybody's got to understand that everything they do, every assignment that they have, regardless of when it's going to happen during the course of the game, they got to think that it's the biggest play of the game for them. And I think what's happening with especially Kansas City, since they've been to so many Super Bowls, is the fact that when you look at their team and you look at the plays that they made, it's just like that running back a couple of weeks ago was Perrine. Even only in one play. But it was the biggest play of the game, and he made it happen. He bought into the fact that he knew he was in that game to execute a particular play, and he did it. Everybody has to understand that their assignment, especially in this particular game, the biggest game of the year, is the most important part of the game. And if everybody can buy into that particular, well, they have bought into it to get there, but I'm saying, that is going to be what separates everybody, separates the teams. How many of those guys on that team understand the importance of their assignment for that particular day? And did they make that commitment to stay out of the other stuff in New Orleans over the course of the week? Because that can affect it too. So, all those things are important. And so I think the team that has that all figured out, and I think most of them do at this particular time, and I say especially Kansas City, because you can see during the course of the season, they didn't really particularly blow anybody out for the most part. I mean, they were winning,
right?
But they won because everybody made a play at a particular time in the game that made them win.
Well, that's exactly what Mike was talking about when he spoke with Brad Johnson about his Tampa team that broke through and won it. And you asked him what?
I said, what did it take? It's unknown territory for me. And that's why it's interesting to listen to Chuck. I've never been there. So, and I played for some good teams. I played for a 15-1 team, and we won one playoff game. So we were 16-1, and then we lost our last game to the Atlanta Falcons. But I haven't been to a Super Bowl. So, what was the missing thing? I told Brad Johnson. He was on that team with me, and he said, "We all had our best year. We all had our best season." And he included everyone in the locker room who made the locker room and everything for practice, and like every single detail across the board for your day, even at practice, was made better by people that were really doing their job. That's what Chuck's saying, and that he specifies more. I agree totally that when it's the Super Bowl, you have to be on detail for every single assignment that you're out there for, and that's what Chuck is saying is that when you're called on, it has to count in a game like this,
Right.
And I mean that's new territory for me. I've never really heard it put that way, but that's a great way to break it down.
That's the way it is, and the teams that don't. You see the teams like when you watch the game, the Super Bowls, and it's a real intense anyway, Mike. You know that. And that particular game is even 10 times more intense because you got the whole world watching you, and then you're thinking about your assignments. You're thinking about all the things that everybody's got to execute so that you can execute yours. Is the offensive line going to be on? Is like for me, Ed White, is he going to be that same motivational guy that I've had all year? Is that Ryan Urie going to be that guy? I can jump outside, all those kinds. Everybody working at it.
What was it like? Well, I mean, could you feel the pressure could you feel cameras on you? Was there a certain feeling that made it different from any other game, a playoff game included?
The only thing that I remember feeling is when you walked out there at the beginning of the game, you knew that it was the game and everybody was focusing on you. And I know for me, I was thinking, my assignments. Was I ready? Was I focused on the things that I needed to do? Everything else, once I got on the field, I just blocked everything out and was hoping that everybody, that I needed to be able to showcase my skill set was ready. Because I knew, it's not like everybody says Patrick Mahomes has to win this game. I'm like, wait a minute. He don't win the game. The team wins the game.
That's right.
Or
That's right.
Lamar Jackson's got to win the game. He don't win the game. Take away his line. Take away his receivers. What are you going to do?
That's exactly right.
He's got to be able to make the decisions he needs to make. He needs to make sure he's put the fit time in the film room, the tendencies of the team and all that. That's his job. But he can't do that job.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, look at the defense. Say the Patriots against the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl. Tom Brady threw a pick 6.
Right.
Well, to get back in that game, they'll say, well, Brady came back and won that. No, Brady didn't come back and win that.
Right.
The defense gave them enough possessions to get the ball back, and they forced the football to come out, and they got on everything. Edelman makes a catch that still you can't believe he caught. And the defense allowed several more possessions than you would get in a single half to come back and overcome that lead. And so it was the defense that should be. They won the Super Bowl, not Tom Brady.
When I hear this, though, I'm not listening to sports and everything. I'm like, Jalen Hurts has got to win this game, or Patrick Mahomes got to win this game.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what's going to have to happen before they can showcase that skill set that they have?
That's it.
Those guys up front got to execute. If they're not executing, nobody can execute. So it's the guys up front, the big guys, that dictate whether you're going to win or not.
So true.
So you look at Saquon Barkley.
Right.
Mike has made him the X factor of this Super Bowl. That how he goes, a lot of things will follow. And if he has a huge game, if he gets, obviously, the big guys up front to give him a crack, he can exploit this game.
Right. The good thing about Philly is the fact that I think their line averages is like about 6'6", 330.
Yeah, they're enormous. They are enormous.
Enormous men.
They are.
But enormous, nasty attitudes, every one of them.
Yeah.
You tell them, Mike. It's nothing like having an offensive lineman with that nasty defensive type of. A lot of guys think offensive linemen are kind of like laid back, complacent kind of guys.
Docile.
Worried about the stock market.
Docile, docile's a good word. But when you get an offensive lineman that's got that nasty, you got something to work with, and that's what I'm saying with Philadelphia in this game against Kansas City. It's not going to be like a typical Kansas City game. Philadelphia's going to be coming, and they're going to be beating you up. Up front.
They bring it physical.
And they're going to bring it. And the physical aspect of it up front, boy, I wish you dream to have guys like that up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they are just totally dominant.
I played with some mean guys, not tough. They were all tough, but there were some mean streaks up there too. And the least expected, Randall McDaniel was extremely ill-tempered. When it came, I mean, he
never seemed like it did.
But he never seemed like it, never at all. But I remember him coming over and just being mad at something, and he had this face mask. It was a dark face mask, and you couldn't see his eyes, and you could just see him huffing and puffing on the sidelines, madder than. And when he went back out there, it was just ugly. It was ugly. He could be really bad, and I mean, even like Big Stussy was mean, and Tim Irwin was mean, and Loudermilk was just foul, and. But then Johnny Michaels said that the meanest guy he'd ever coached was Ranieri. And I thought, wow, I would have thought Ed White, or, even Mick.
Yeah. Well, Ron had for our era, he was the biggest offensive lineman to come out back then. I mean, that was 270, 280.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying about the Philly and the edge that I think they may have this time around is the fact that they do have a great running back that is a home run hitter anytime he touches the ball. Yeah. I don't think Kansas City's faced that. A guy like that and an offensive line like that with the depth that they have. And then it doesn't put the pressure on Jalen Hurts because he does come play in big games. No. And I think he's been hurt during the year, but I think if he doesn't have to be the game changer, and just the game, just managing the game, I think Philly has a great chance to win.
I think that Barkley is the difference maker.
Oh man!
And with all the things that Chuck said about the common denominator is always the big guys up front to determine whether or not you're going to have a chance to use a secret weapon like that. And I think he is that. I don't think KC has faced anyone like that. No. And I don't think a lot of the league has faced anyone like that until this year.
No. And Kansas City hasn't faced an offensive line like that.
Agreed, totally.
Defensively.
There's a reason why he's getting loose like that.
That's right. Kansas City's got a really good defensive line, but they ain't faced nothing like that.
I totally agree with you on that.
And I say it the way I'm saying it because they ain't faced nothing like that.
No.
Because those guys are...
You got a mean streak. They're tough. Yeah. Everyone's tough in the NFL. I mean, for the most part, an offensive linemen are a different kind of tough, but they're mean.
Yeah, just like the city of Philadelphia, they kind of took on that whole
Philly
persona. Because you go to Philly, you better have you better be ready because those fans are dedicated. And how can you look up in the stands? You know, Mike, when you look up in the stands, you see those people, and they real intense. Like I used to look up in our stands out in the Metropolitan Stadium, and I'm like, there ain't no way I can't give them 120% out here.
That's right.
I got to. Look at these people. I mean, they were just like, you could see the
cold air, the breath
coming out of them. And they were like, it's like, how could you not?
Yeah.
And that's a motivator there, too. So it's going to be interesting.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, much more on Super Bowl 59 and the Minnesota Vikings. Do they put the franchise tag on one Sam Darnold? Is that the way to move out of this situation? We'll get into that, plus some interesting names in the NFL all of a sudden have become available. Will the Vikings bite? Should they bite? We'll get into all that and much more as we continue here on the JimBob Sports Jamboree with Vikings legend Chuck Foreman, presented by The Window Store, Inc. Welcome back to the JimBob Sports Jamboree with Vikings legend Chuck Foreman and the superstar Mike Morris here as well as we get you set for the Super Bowl between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. This show brought to you by The Window Store, Inc. And before we dive back into the Super Bowl, on February 18th, the window opens for teams to franchise players. Mm-hmm. The Minnesota Vikings have a quarterback who was in the Pro Bowl. He put up Pro Bowl-type numbers until the very end of the season in one Sam Darnold. So, if you're Kwesi Adolfo-Mensa, the general manager of the Minnesota Vikings, what do you do? Do you let him just walk away in free agency? You'll get a compensatory pick for him next year in the draft, and that'll be that, and say, have a great life, Sam? Or do you take that tag and slap it on his behind and say, you're still one of us?
I'm going to slap him. I'm going to keep him, personally.
So it would cost in the neighborhood of $39.5 million.
I'm going to give it to him
Why is that?
because he's earned it. And we saw what he's capable of doing after 1 year under a really fine young coach. He's a developer. He knows how to take a guy and develop all those skills he needs as a quarterback, whether it's the mental aspect of it, the physical aspect of it, the ability to be able to recognize, which we saw all year long, what was in front of him. He wasn't perfect, but he was darn good. Oh, hey, 14-3.
Right.
I mean, come on, let's go. He made some great plays, and you can see his teammates like him too. That's a major factor.
Yeah, that's true. We saw that after the game where they had the water bottle shower in the locker room.
We had 2 games that nobody played up. They got beat up front.
No doubt. Well, what would you do, Mr. Morris? You're now in the GM chair. A $39.5 million, or do you let him go and tell him thanks for the season?
I think I'm like Chuck. I think he's gotten so used to the way of winning and the way of Kevin O'Connell being his mentor now, and the teammates' acceptance that he has won all that. The community has won and bought into him, I think, for the most part. So you keep him. The musical chairs at quarterback has got to stop. It's got to stop. You got to find something that's solid, a good athlete, whether that be out of college and given a new chance and revamped, refurbished, whatever you want to call it. But he has been lights out, and he saved the season. When McCarthy went down, he saved the season. That's all there is to it. And I mean, he played really, really well. So with another year, I think, coming back and everything staying the same for him 2 years in a row and starting, and you got McCarthy too to push him in camp. But it would be great to see him come back and not have to worry so much about what you're going to do at quarterback. You got a lot of team around him. So you don't want to just pass that off onto something else, the great unknown. You got a great team. You got to plug in something that is reliable. He was that for the entire season. And
everybody's not a Jaden Daniels that comes in there. He had a lot of time behind the center before he came out of school. He was 24.
Right,
I think so.
Yeah. Something like that.
He'd been around because of the COVID
he's been
years.
around. He's had that experience and stuff like that. And then he came into DC. Into the Commanders and did a really fine job as a rookie. That's a rarity. And JJ, of course, the jury's still out on him. So why rush him when you got somebody here? Why not give Sam Darnold another year to see where he can go? And in the meantime, you're developing your young quarterback.
What if you franchise Darnold and then trade him to get more assets? Because right now the Vikings have 3, maybe 4 picks in the upcoming draft.
That defeats the purpose of the development of Sam Darnold, right?
I would say if you're really counting on McCarthy to come in and do what you thought he was going to do the day you drafted him, then a franchise tag at least gets you off the hook. He gets paid, and there is an option then at the end of that year to be able to still bring him back or let a team franchise it. But then you can move on knowing at least what you have. By that time, you know what you have with McCarthy and whatever else your plan is by that time. But give it one more year. Don't just send it down the road and go without a quarterback that played last year at all.
Right.
For us.
Right.
And let it take your chances on it. You don't want to do that. You have so much team in place. The window's only open so wide before it shuts again, and before you start burning things down and building it over again.
I think they got another year or two with the roster that they have intact right now. That a play here and a play there, could change the whole thing.
Does this affect, say they do franchise him and Darnold wants a long-term deal? He doesn't want to just be tagged. He wants, a 3-year, 4-year deal, kind of like Daniel Jones sucked out of the Giants.
Yeah.
And so does this send a bad message to other players about the Vikings on how they operate? Instead of letting Sam go out on the market, see what you're worth, and get that financial security, although he's all these guys have financial security. I mean, it's kind of a foolish statement nowadays with the money they make.
Yeah, how much more
but the perception with other free agents or with other players in the Vikings organization. Well, look, they stuck the tag on him and then they flipped him to Cleveland.
Well, they can do that. Obviously, I mean, if they. I guess it depends on how you look at it. Me being selfish, I guess I would like to see him franchising. But me as a from the business standpoint of it for him, I can understand him wanting to go out and get all he can get too. But personally for me, I'd like to see him keep him. But then too, I would like to see if he wanted to go out and test the market.
Right.
Let him go test the market and see what's out there. And then, it's not going to be that much more than what the Vikings are going to pay him.
You may get him for cheaper than the $39.5 million that you would have to spend on the tag.
Let him test the market, and I guarantee it's not going to be more than the $39 million. I don't believe.
And put it this way, I don't think he's going to pressure the Vikings too much. I think he'd like to be able to stay where he's finally found success and why he would stay, because he's been made the starter and someone believes in him already.
Right. He's earned the right to be the guy.
I mean, he knows what it's like on the other side of the table when it's not good.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he would want to drive the price up, but if he goes out on the market and finds live money somewhere else, it will drive it up a tick.
Yeah, and then that somewhere else might be like a.
And if it turns out to be like Cleveland or somebody else, then you're going to be. You really want that again? I don't think he does. I think he'd rather settle for a little bit less to be with the team that loves him. Like Chuck was talking about, the team loves the guy.
Right.
The coaching staff definitely, and I think most of the Viking nation would say that they're for Sam Darnold after the season.
I would think so.
All right. Myles Garrett has demanded a trade from Cleveland.
Right.
Chuck, would you be interested in going all in on a piece like that for this team?
It depends on how much.
You franchise Darnold and trade him to Cleveland.
But I thought, Cleveland's always been competitive. Other than the Deshaun Watson thing that threw everything out off kilter. But, I thought they had. I don't know if I'm gonna. He's one heck of a player, though.
Oh, he's one of my favorite players in the league.
He's a real deal.
If I was looking for the player, not the contract, I would. He's definitely an upgrade at anything that he would play here. I don't care if they got him inside or out. Or, he's that kind of guy.
Yeah,
he's an impact player. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I looked at him a few weeks ago. This dude is like Samson, man. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. So he would be an asset to any team, no doubt.
How about Cooper Kupp? The Rams say they're putting him out there on the market.
Yeah, well.
Do we need an additional third wide receiver like that?
No, I think we good at wide receiver.
I don't think you can pass the ball in that many directions to make everyone happy out there.
Right, we got JJ, we got
Addison.
We got Powell. Is that who else we got?
Brandon Powell.
Then we got the number 83. What's his name? Oh man,
Naylor.
Yeah.
Jalen Naylor.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Pretty good receiver. Excuse me for not. That's a senior moment.
That's
a senior moment.
It reminds me of an Adam Thielen type thing where he is up against too many great players on the team. He was the only wide receiver we had, and the only option to go to. But now we've got Addison, we've got JJ, and a great tight end. So I mean,
yeah, I forgot the tight end. Yeah,
Thielen had to go.
Yeah, Thielen had to go. But with Thielen, hey, here's a guy that came from Mankato. What was it, Mankato State?
Yep,
Minnesota State, and wasn't even drafted, and made a good, good run at it, still playing. Hey, he did a great job.
He probably did the right thing to move when he did.
He did.
He definitely wouldn't have gotten the catches here like he does now in Carolina.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't think we need. How old is Cooper Kupp anyway? I mean, he's up there, right?
That's his 8th year, so yeah, there's some tread that's been burnt off the tire there.
He's great. He's a good player.
But he's a receiver though. It's not like you being physically beat up, even though he's had a few injuries.
Right.
But
all right, so final predictions here, since Mr. Morris is going to jump out the window. And Bob Sansevere, of course, will be joining us in a bit as well. So your Super Bowl champion is?
I'm going to do it. I'm going to stay consistent with it. I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles by 6 points.
Oh,
I
man.
know. It's the wrong choice probably, but
Yeah, I
really
don't know
believe-
about that.
I really believe they've got a chance to win if they use Barkley the right way.
Only reason I'm going to pick Philly is because I had relatives when I grew up that lived in Philly. Okay. I love the Kansas City Chiefs. Don't misunderstand me. But since they my East Coast team, one state over, I guess I'll go with Philly.
All right. There you heard it. It's a Philly special here on the JimBob Sports Jamboree with Vikings legend Chuck Foreman, the superstar Mike Morris here as well. We'll take a break, and when we come back, much more to get you set for Super Bowl Sunday. This show brought to you by the Window Store, Inc. Welcome back to the JimBob Sports Jamboree with Vikings legend Chuck Foreman. And this show brought to you by the Window Store, Inc. And Chuck, you have been to 3 Super Bowls. You are part of the last Minnesota Vikings team to have gone to a Super Bowl. But what was that week like? How different was it from a regular playoff game, knowing that you were one of the last 2 teams standing, and you had that whole 2-week period to run all of this in your head all night long?
Well, it was exciting, no doubt about it. You knew you were one of the 2 best teams in the world, back, and you knew everybody's going to be focusing on everything that you did with all the press coming around, and it's even 10 times worse now, probably.
Right.
And with all the press and all the other things, all the people coming around showing up at your hotel. You have to be, it's exciting to see people coming, all the fans coming. Everybody wants to meet you, shake your hand, and do and then the media commitments. And it's exciting, but then you got to make sure you're able to separate that from what you're there to do, which is to play the game. You got to make sure you stay focused on your assignments and all the things that you had to do to be able to win the game. And and all the things that were going on in the Super Bowl city. It's all the
it's almost like you've already won,
yeah,
right?
And
because everybody's
out there
congratulating you, slapping you on the back, and
everywhere you went, there was like people, and they knew everywhere you were going, and it's like, wow, if you didn't have the discipline to be able to handle all that, then you were in trouble from the start. And I think one of the things Bud Grant did with us, he kept us separated from all that mostly. Now, whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, I don't really know, because I know all the teams we played against, we'd hear they were downtown here doing this and doing that, and all these guys are out there having a good time, and we're sitting there like at the hotel, just like.
So he had a curfew on you
we
guys?
Had curfews. They had meetings on top of meetings. Just coming there to some meetings and like, okay, what are we gonna go talk about today? And you just hardly anything, just to keep you occupied. And so that you don't get tempted to do anything stupid or anything. And
so were you in a hotel outside?
We were in the hotels out. We stayed in the hotels outside of the norm. Okay. Bud always kept, like, the league might have wanted you to stay at a certain hotel, but Bud and the Vikings always put us someplace different. So that they can have much more control of everything.
Okay.
And it's a lot of fun, but. It was a great experience, because every day it was something. You had agents coming by or shoe companies coming by to try to sign you up to wear their shoes. Back in those days, that's how they did it. We had the apparel companies wanting you to wear something of theirs and paying you money, and there was a lot of stuff going on back then.
So how much practicing did you do? You stayed here for a week, or did you go somewhere else because Minnesota was frozen then?
We went to Oakland. Where did we go? We went to Tulsa once. We went to a couple different places to practice before we went to the Super Bowl.
Right, because you had that 2-week window. So 1 week was somewhere, and then you went to the city of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's what Bud used to do. So, yeah.
So what was the practice on Super Bowl week? Was it anything like normal, or was it?
pretty intense, normal, very. Everybody was very, the concentration level. It was quiet, but a quiet intenseness. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah.
Because everybody was focused on all their assignments and things they had to do, and of course they would come into meetings and tell us what we can do and what we can't do, and stuff like that. And so, with me, and of course, I just said, let's just do what we've been doing. But all the different things they tell you what you need to be aware of, or some of the things they thought they might change up, and we had to be able to recognize. And when they got in, the audibles changed because everybody, back in they had guys up in the stands with binoculars trying to steal the signs and stuff. So we had signs and different. It was kind of exciting because you were playing. It's like a chess game, at practice and thinking about all the things that they would do to try to find out what we were going to do. And it was interesting because it went to a whole different level at the Super Bowl where you thought. Because, it's something you really, being the two final teams to play, and especially the Super Bowl, it was really intense, and all the different details that they went through, even more in detail, to make you aware of what's going to happen. But it all came down to the physicality of the game and who made the mistakes. That's all, and who executed the best.
So when did it hit you going to the first Super Bowl that you were in the Super Bowl? Was it the bus ride to the stadium? Was it coming out of the tunnel for warm-ups? Was it the national anthem when you realized, holy buckets, Chuck Foreman is about to play in a Super Bowl?
In the NFC Championship games after we won, that was like the moment for me, like, while we're going to the Super Bowl. And then when you get to the Super Bowl, you thought you're at the moment when you said, when you earned the right to go there. But when you got there in the game day, then that was a whole different feeling because, like, you just walk out on the field and that the whole world's watching you. Not just your team, your fan base, but everybody in the whole world's watching you. And you want to do the best that you can, play the best that you can play. And it's a lot of pressure. I can't
imagine. I couldn't even imagine.
A lot of pressure to go out there and do and be the best that you can be. So you want to come out there and leave it all out there.
Yeah, I just wouldn't even know what to do. I'd be just
you would, because
all those people looking at you, and you just look around all the lights in the stadium, and you're just like, here we are.
And then especially, it was special.
Well, Chuck, hopefully a Viking team can
I hope so.
Be there soon.
Yeah, I hope so, because let me tell you, it's no other, you'll never feel that feeling like that, to get to the Super Bowl, play in the Super Bowl. Now, winning it's probably even better. I don't know, but I know what we experienced my 3 times at the Super Bowl, it was unbelievable.
Well, thank you so much for the time, Chuck. We appreciate it, and thanks for sharing these memories with you.
Yeah.
It's very kind of you. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, Bob Sansevere will join us on the other side as the JimBob Sports Jamboree with Vikings legend Chuck Foreman continues after this timeout. This show brought to you by the Window Store, Inc.
On behalf of Vikings legend Chuck Foreman and Fox 9's Jim Rich, I'm Bob Sansevere, and I want to say thank you to all of our listeners and our radio partners, KXRA in Alexandria, KRWC in Buffalo, KDHL in Faribault and Owatonna, KDAL and WDSM in Duluth, WNMT in Hibbing, KTOE in Mankato, AM 660 The Bear, WBHR in St. Cloud, and Wild 102 FM in Roseau. Also, KWOA AM FM in Worthington, and KKBJ in Bemidji, and Bob Total Country serving the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and surrounding areas. We'll talk to you later.